How to Analyze People: The Truth About Mind Reading and Intuition. Written by Aries Helen. Narrated by Dean Collins. Chapter 1. Is there a millennial personality type? The definition of the millennial continues to get more interest from politics, pop culture, corporations, and also scholastic scientists and clinicians. It can reasonably be claimed that there are some crucial specifying millennial psychological or socio-cultural phenomena, including reality television voyeurism, obsessive startup ideation, and the on-demand living style craving. Do these cultural patterns have implications for the psychology of a generation? From the perspective of pop psychology, millennials have a unique identifiable character profile that has ramifications for employers, marketers, political leaders, and civilization at large. From the perspective of academic psychology, it is an empirical question that necessarily starts with a functional definition. The existence of several descriptions of millennials has been explained by news sources over the past year, though seldom. For example, the issue was the subject of a short roundtable conversation on the television show Morning Joe recently. That being said, this definitional problem has mostly gone disregarded, suggesting there's some intuitive, universally understood, yet unarticulated meaning. Since the term millennial describes an age-based demographic, an operational meaning requires an age range. Lacking any empirical or scholarly sources, I count on personal conversations and news reports in asserting that it has varied from 18 to 34 and a lot more broadly from 18 to 40. Within a subfield of psychology, particularly psychodynamic circles, there's a long-standing view of adolescence as being an extended psychological subjective state instead of a naturally defined discrete stage. In this context, individuals from 18 to 40 years old can validly be conceived as a meaningful group to be defined, described, labeled, and explained in connection to a common teen personality. Consider Erikson's stages of psychosocial development. A. Identity versus identity diffusion. B. Intimacy versus seclusion. And C. Generativity versus stagnation, all of which seem intuitively appropriate to the putative millennial character construct. Though empirically minded psychologists from all schools of thought should highlight more objective criteria. Because of that, for the purpose of clarity, parsimony, and the purpose of this book, let millennials be described as individuals in the 18 to 35 years age range. This meaning should be enhanced based on empirical proof as it emerges. To reach a valid and reliable operational definition, in theory, pertinent distinguishing variables from other age-based demographic constructs, for example, Generation X, Generation Y, baby boomers, etc., really need to be identified and tested. Moving past definitional concerns, the psychology of millennials should be clarified by empirical and medical proof. How can scientific and character psychologists answer questions about the existence of a valid millennial personality construct? Clinicians can observe typical medical concerns that are faced by millennials. Academic research can be examined for psychometric, neurobiological, and behavioral information that defines individuals varying from 18 to 35 years of age, and in contrast to other age or time periods. Chapter 2. Communication Success with Different Personality Types. The four personality types are the helpful nurturers, the creative idealists, the cerebral realists, and the strategic directors. Many of us have a dominant character type, with a couple of secondary types. These characteristics can change and progress over time. Each of the 4 personality types also has a greater and a lower maturity version. While the higher maturity version of each type normally has success in life, both personally and expertly, the lower maturity version usually struggles with particular issues. Here are some of the most dominant characteristics of each type. The helpful nurturers have the tendency to be nice, supportive, sensitive, and friendly. The creative idealists tend to be energetic, inspiring, persuasive, and fun. The cerebral realists have a tendency to be detail-oriented, job-driven, analytical, and matter-of-fact. The strategic directors tend to be powerful, achievement-conscious, control-oriented, and productive. Below is a description of the helpful nurturer personality type. Common professions, people-oriented and service professions like nursing, counseling, social work, K-6 education, executive assistant, and customer service. Qualities: friendly, value social relationships, subjective decision-making, conduct typically based on values and intuition, emotion-oriented, convincing, takes care of others, often embrace encouraging roles, romantic introvert. Obstacles: personal feelings can get in the way of neutrality, can be too passive, can't say no, dispute avoidant, look after self last, sacrifice for others at expense of oneself. Relationship with other types: idealist positive, admire idealists, want energy to rub off, want to become part of the fun. Idealist negative, overwhelmed by high energy of idealist. Realist positive, glad capable realist can handle details of task. Realist negative, think of realist as cerebral, cold and impersonal, lacking human sensitivity and consideration. Director positive, feel supported by people individual director. Director negative, find director frightening and prideful. In summary, for a nurturer, a day without a smile, kind words, and friendliness from others is a lot like a flower without air, sunshine, and water. The flower will wilt, just as the nurturer's heart will grieve. Love and appreciate a nurturer, and the nurturer will love and appreciate you back tenfold. It is essential to take note of the fact that this material is for reference only. There has always been a danger with personality sorters of putting people in boxes. Even when a person clearly matches one personality type, not every little thing written about that type may match the individual. We're far too complex to fit nicely into broad categories. Chapter 3: Mind Reading. Humans can't literally read the minds of other people, but they can create psychological models in order to successfully intuit individuals' ideas and feelings. This is referred to as compassionate accuracy, and it includes reading cues telegraphed by the words, feelings, and nonverbal communication of another individual. Many people have the ability to read others' emotions and thoughts to some degree, but the ones on the autism spectrum, or individuals affected with psychotic conditions, could struggle to determine the emotions or social cues of others. Often, knowing our own mind and motivations is challenging enough, not to mention the minds of complete strangers and even loved ones, friends, or partners. In relationships, lots of people make the critical mental mistake of overstating a partner or family member's capability to read their own ideas, assuming that anyone who knows them well must also know what they think or feel, even if they haven't said it out loud. How people see through each other. In sci-fi stories, mind reading is regularly used for nefarious purposes. In the real life, having a clear sense of what others think and feel helps us keep from disputes and miscommunication and strengthen personal relationships. When attempting to read a person's mind, or more accurately their state of mind, body language, tone, and choice of words are generally the best spots to begin. Another crucial element is empathy. Having the ability to put oneself in somebody else's shoes can provide essential insights into their point of view and make understanding their thoughts, feelings, and actions that much easier. Can people really read one another's minds? Research implies that our discernment of other people's emotions and trustworthiness could manifest in our body's responses to them at least as strongly as in our psychological evaluations of their speech. Trusting a person's gut, then, by being mindful of our body's responses to someone else, can help us make more precise judgments about others. What emotional signals do we send out to others? When trying to read other individuals, we tend to look to their faces. Research shows that while the faces of happy people take on a V shape with eyebrows and mouths showed up, upset people's faces form more of an X, with eyebrows and mouths turned downward. Being aware of this tendency in others and ourselves can enhance communication and understanding. How well do romantic partners read each other? Romantic partners are very little better at reading each other's emotions than they are at reading anyone else's. By some estimates, even partners might only assess one another accurately about a third of the time. Partners could struggle to judge one another objectively just because of sentiment override, in which one's own feelings about a relationship impact their analysis of a partner's feelings. Do individuals from different cultures read people differently? As kids, people raised in different societies learn to adopt local standards for the display and expression of feelings. In spots such as Japan, for example, people may stress masking feelings when others are present. People also read others in a different way based on their particular cultural accents. For example, Americans rate expressions of joy, sadness, and surprise more intensely than others do. Improving your people reading abilities. Even the most socially skilled people regularly misread other people's feelings because of their own biases, cultural propensities, or situational elements, like not realizing a person who appears to have been sobbing may only have seasonal allergies. A greater knowledge of how others show their feelings, and, equally importantly, how our minds and bodies respond to the feelings of others, can help improve people reading skills. When is it hard to read other individuals' minds? People have also evolved ways to keep feelings and intentions opaque, and, with practice and intent, can successfully misguide others. Those who are experiencing grief or depression, for example, could put effort into concealing those feelings to keep from feeling as if they are burdening others or to keep from others' advice. How can you get much better at reading people? It has long been really believed that individuals' body language provides a way that people can have tells that could tip observant others off to their true intentions. Reading others can become more effective, research shows, when we purposely focus on such clues. That is an example. Facial features like the eyes and the mouth may offer a great deal of info, but if we are taking a look at the whole individual, we might miss seeing what their faces need to tell us. Can you keep nonverbal communication from giving you away? The face is the main medium for conveying feelings, but overall body language also plays a vital role. Often, even when we aim to keep our facial expression neutral, our overall nonverbal communication still gives us away. To avoid revealing way too much in social or professional situations, it is essential to consider both facial and body hints. When mind reading is a difficulty. Some psychiatric and behavioral conditions, like autism and ADHD, make reading the mind and feelings of others a challenge. While the ones with autism and ADHD do not routinely lack empathy, they might struggle to detect subtle hints, or could react impulsively without putting in the time to assess somebody's words or tone. These problems likely have roots in multiple areas of the brain. Some research has pointed to atypical activity in the anterior cingulate cortex, an area of the brain which plays a role in emotion, ethical choices, and social evaluation. Who struggles to read other individuals? Along with conditions like autism, research into compassionate accuracy has focused on the socially restless, who can have a problem with reading feelings simply because they find social interactions unforeseeable or confusing. However, studies have also discovered that there appear to be two kinds of socially anxious people. Some struggle with reading others, while a smaller-sized number actually stand out at mind reading, to the extent that it results in an increased awareness of others and a heightened sensitivity to being examined themselves. How can people with autism learn to read other individuals' feelings? Behavior therapy can help people coping with autism, ADHD, and other developing conditions learn to better recognize typical social cues that, when unnoticed, make it challenging to read other people's thoughts and react properly. Chapter 4. Everyday Mind Reading. Although there is no research proof to support mind reading via extrasensory perception, or ESP, there are individuals who are exceptionally skilled at reading others' nonverbal communication and making informed guesses about what they're thinking or feeling. Psychologist William Ikes calls it everyday mind reading, and there is evidence that we can develop our affective skills and end up being better at reading other people's feelings and thoughts. Here's how. Nonverbal decoding skill. Much of our ability to utilize others' emotions and feelings is through individual distinctions in reading others' nonverbal psychological expressions, specifically through facial expressions and intonation. To give you a sense of what a competent nonverbal decoder can do, watch a professional mind reader or mentalist at work on stage. The mentalist appears to have some sort of ESP, but is actually reading the nonverbal hints of audience members. The mind reader says, "A person here has just recently experienced a loss of a family member," and after that tries to find subtle reactions. Zeroing in on the individual who reacts, the mentalist probes around and watches for responses. It is not ESP. It's highly developed nonverbal decoding skill. The way to improve your ability to decode nonverbal cues is through systematic practice. Here is a guide for improving nonverbal decoding ability. Consider the context. It is not enough to be a great decoder of nonverbal hints. To truly be an everyday mind reader, you need to consider the context. The exact same nonverbal behaviors in different contexts mean different things. Imagine a wife and partner in a group discussion. You notice the spouse carefully squeezes her husband's hand. If it takes place throughout a lull in a conversation, it very likely signifies love. If it occurs after someone else had said something provocative, it might mean focus or remember what I told you. If it happens after the husband has said something, it may mean keep quiet. Context matters. Deceptiveness detection techniques. One might be inspired to become a daily mind reader to tell if others are lying or telling the truth. I'm sorry to tell you that research shows that we're just not very good at detecting deception. There are some uncommon people, though, who have exceptional ability to discover lies. Psychologists Paul Ekman and Maureen O'Sullivan labeled these people wizards of lie detection. How do they do it? The wizards look for inconsistencies in nonverbal conduct, or between what a person is saying and how they're saying it. They also analyze the context. Importantly, they don't fall victim to psychological shortcuts when it comes to lie detection, such as believing that a phony won't make eye contact, or will look in a specific direction when lying. Research actually shows that phonies engage in more eye contact than truth-tellers. The smart phonies know all about the mental shortcuts people are susceptible to. So, how do you become a better everyday mind reader? 1. Get inspired. It is difficult to be a very good nonverbal decoder, so you need to have the devotion to do it. 2. Practice. Reading nonverbal communication and contextual hints need a good deal of practice. Importantly, you really need to practice in a way that allows you to evaluate your precision. Simply put, if you do not know the truth, you can't learn how to end up being more precise. 3. Do not take psychological faster ways. Don't presume that a specific nonverbal hint always means the exact same thing. Don't fall victim to stereotypes about people and their body language. An example could be this. Several research studies suggest that deceptiveness is better found by focusing on the liar's words rather than their body language. To put it simply, is the lie plausible? Are the verbal and nonverbal cues consistent? Chapter 5. The Truth About Intuition. In 1997, IBM's Deep Blue supercomputer beat the world's best chess player, Garry Kasparov. Instantly, some people noted that we were still superior at the age-old Chinese game of Go. Go, they reasoned, would remain out of robots' grab for the foreseeable future. Its plurality of possible moves and the nuances in assessing even who's winning put it further out of the world of rote combinatorics and into the orbit of instinct, allegedly humanity's specialty. It may be 100 years before a computer beats humans at Go, a Princeton astrophysicist told the New York Times right after the Kasparov match. Perhaps even longer. If you follow the news, you know it took till 2016. What does the success of DeepMind's AlphaGo against the best meat-based players say about instinct, human or otherwise? On one hand, it tears down some highfalutin claims about this special sense, exposing it to be, as some psychologists have long held, absolutely nothing more than pattern recognition. On the other hand, pattern recognition does not do full justice to the many patterns instinct recognizes. The majority of human conduct happens immediately, guided by genetics and routine instead of conscious deliberation. You could not really get by if you walked into a dining establishment and you needed to reconstruct from first concepts how to behave, says Valerie Thompson, a psychologist at the University of Saskatchewan in Canada. Even for more complex problems, intuition drives choices, says Gerd Geigerenzer, a psychologist at the Max Planck Institute for Human Development in Berlin. In working with magnets at the biggest German companies, he finds that they go through all the information they have, and they're buried under information, and at the end, the information doesn't tell them what they should do. Instinct, he says, is a kind of unconscious intelligence that is as needed as conscious intelligence. Despite intuition's universality, we have many mistaken intuitions about instinct. Here we will consider 8 aspects of unconscious processing, including its application to creative skill, morality, and social interaction, taking a look at what it succeeds, where it fails, who uses it, when we trust it, and how to improve it. Building Deep Blue and AlphaGo required a lot of hard, deliberate thought, but it also required loads of human intuition or instinct and insight. The fact that we hacked together devices to beat us in a number of small corners of our own game shows, if absolutely nothing else, shows that we can hack our own instincts too. 1. Instinct is highly efficient, if you don't consider it excessive. A body of research reveals that intuition can be not only faster than reflection, but also more accurate. We're fairly good at judging people based upon impressions, thin pieces of experience varying from a glance of a photo to a 5-minute interaction, and deliberation can be not only extraneous, but invasive. In one study of the capability she called thin slicing, the late psychologist Nalini Ambady asked participants to watch quiet 10-second videos of professors and to rank the instructor's general effectiveness. Their ratings associated highly with students' end-of-semester ratings. Another set of individuals had to count backwards from 1,000 by nines as they watched the clips, inhabiting their conscious working memory. Their ratings were just as accurate, showing the intuitive nature of the social processing. Critically, another group was asked to spend a minute jotting down reasons for their judgment before giving the score. Accuracy dropped drastically. Ambady suspected that deliberation focused them on vivid but deceptive cues, such as certain gestures or utterances, instead of letting the complex interaction of subtle signals form a holistic impression. She found similar interference when individuals watched 15-second clips of sets of people and judged whether they were strangers, good friends, or dating partners. Other research shows that we are much better at finding deceptiveness and sexual preference from thin pieces when we count on intuition or instinct instead of reflection. It's just as though you are driving a standard transference, says Judith Hall, a psychologist at Northeastern University. And if you begin thinking about it too much, you can't remember what you are doing. However, if you go on automatic pilot, you're fine. Much of our social life is a lot like that. Thinking way too much can also hurt our ability to form an opinion. University students' rankings of strawberry jams and college courses aligned better with experts' opinions when the students weren't asked to analyze their reasoning. And people made car buying choices that were both objectively better and more personally pleasing when asked to focus on their feelings instead of on details, but only if the choice was complex, when they had a lot of information to process. Intuition's special powers are released only in certain scenarios. In one study, participants completed a battery of 8 jobs, including, but not limited to, 4 that tapped reflective thinking, critical rules, understanding, vocabulary, and 4 that tapped instinct or intuition and creative skill, creating new products or figures of speech. Then, they ranked the degree to which they had used intuition or instinct, their gut feeling, hunches, my heart. Use of their gut hurt their efficiency on the first 4 jobs, as expected, and helped them on the rest. Sometimes, the heart is smarter than the head. 2. We get too emotionally attached to instinctive beliefs. Once an intuition hits, we hold on to it despite the threats. Instinct can, for instance, lead to various kinds of cognitive and social predispositions, like the anchoring impact, where choices are swayed by the first piece of info tossed at us, and racial prejudice. Even in parts where the heart should rule, like passion, it can be clueless. In a classic research study, when guys on a bridge were halted by an attractive woman and asked to finish a questionnaire, they were way more likely to try to contact her afterward if it was a scary suspension bridge, misattributing psychological arousal to sexual attraction. Our dreams, the things we cannot really control, hold a powerful aura of truth we can't quite snuff out. People report they're more likely to change their travel prepares if they dreamed about a plane crash than if the federal government announced an actual travel caution. And test takers cannot shake the first instinct fallacy. 3 in 4 college students reported that when reevaluating an answer on an examination, their preliminary choice will usually turn out to be right. But when erase marks on actual exams were evaluated, the reverse held true. 2 times as many changed answers went from wrong to right as right to wrong. In general, says psychologist Sascha Topolinski of the University of Cologne in Germany, intuition or instinct is something psychological that makes you positive in an idea. You can't eliminate this feeling from me. I do not trust this vehicle seller. I can't tell you why, but I am confident I don't like him. Intuition about the accuracy of an intuition is a lot more fallible. When some people were asked to rank their confidence that their gut feelings had steered them masterfully on a test, self-confidence rankings had no relationship with real performance. Even when we acknowledge the irrationality of an intuition, we typically stick with it. Consider superstitious notions. I'm an atheist who knocks on wood while understanding it's hogwash. When an instinct captures attention and activates emotions, it might be specifically hard to shake, says Jane Risen, a psychologist at the University of Chicago. She calls preserving beliefs we know to be false giving in to intuition or instinct. Intuition may not be magic, but we're truly under its spell. 3. Intuition can be improved with practice. To have good intuitions in any domain needs a lot of practice, but not all domains are open to good intuitions. First of all, there should be regularities connecting events and outcomes. The domain must have high credibility. Gary Klein, a psychologist in Washington, D.C., speaking with the firm Macrocognition, has long checked out the role of knowledge in the intuition or instinct of experts like fire commanders, who can size up a burning building rapidly. Fires follow the laws of physics, says Klein. The international economy is significantly more chaotic, preventing predictability. As Geiger-Renzer notes, 5 years before the 2007 housing crisis, the president of the American Economic Association said, "Macroeconomics has prospered. Its central issue of depression avoidance has been resolved." Whether you should trust your feelings should hinge not on the strength of those emotions, we have poor intuitions about instincts, but on the structure of the domain you are operating in. Look external, not inward. Second, you need clear feedback to refine your instinctual decisions. A review of the literature shows that weather forecasters, test pilots, and chess masters had more reliable expertise than psychologists, admissions officers, and judges. Outcomes in the latter's areas are fuzzier and can play out long after you have made a decision. That goes for much of daily life also. You do not do a diary in an Excel file where you write, "Okay, on October 1st, I made this choice," or "I bought this product," and so on, Topolinski says. We lack the hard data about what we do. Good instincts in one domain don't guarantee good instincts in another. As Geiger-Renzer puts it, a soccer player who has great intuitions about scoring an objective might have bad intuitions about spending his money. So there cannot be a general test of instinct or intuition. Even within a domain, know-how can vary between different kinds of jobs. We can use concentrated thinking not only to train our instinctive expertise over time, but also to welcome or keep away from intuitions in the moment. Metaphors and sketches are outstanding tools to help us reframe problems or see solutions more plainly. Klein coaches people to look at premortems. When considering a strategy, imagine from a future vantage point that it failed and think of what went wrong. This thinking tool makes powerlessness real, instinctual things rather than abstract and ignorable hypotheses. Philosopher Daniel Dennett of Tufts University has coined the term instinct or intuition pumps for thought experiments meant to reframe issues, but he notes that they can be used for good or for evil. One should learn how easy it is to build bogus intuition or instinct pumps that will provoke fist-pounding intuitions that aren't worth your loyalty, Dennett says. But also, instinct pumps can help you out of imagination blockades. Caution is advised. The role of deliberation in honing impulses and understanding when to trust them reveals reflection's close cooperation with instinct in both its development and implementation. Our reflective deliberation scaffolds off our instinct or intuition, but it goes both ways, says psychologist Gordon Pennycook of the University of Regina in Canada. We also tend to use them in tandem. 4. Intuition is picking up. Insight is seeing. Intuition is much related to another I word, insight. Sometimes the two are conflated, which is easy to understand. Both relate to ideas emerging from subconscious procedures, offering assistance and hiding their tracks. But they are basically different. Insight is all about seeing, says Eugene Sadler-Smith, a management scientist at Surrey Business School in England. You can articulate the resolution, and you can clarify it to somebody else, whereas intuition or instinct is picking up. We can notice a solution to an issue, or we can notice a decision that we should take. It's a judgment. It's practically like a hypothesis. We do not know whether it's right or wrong till we act upon it. According to macrocognition's Gary Klein, intuition is how we use our experience to know how to act. Insight runs in the opposite direction. It is not just making use of what you know, it is changing what you know. To that end, we in some cases need to clear instinct or intuition out of the way to obtain the sudden solutions we call insight. Developments are usually counterproductive. One way to demonstrate the role of regular barriers is to look at magic tricks. Illusions resolve mental jujitsu, using our presumptions against us. To find out how a trick is done, one should relax certain mental constraints, a very good method for generating insights in general. In one research study, participants watched video clips of a dozen magic tricks, and half got a spoken clue directing their attention to an assumption. For instance, when the magician appeared to throw a coin from one hand to another before making it vanish, the clue was transfer to other hand. Given such prods to counter their instinct about what they saw, their resolution rate went from 21% to 33%. Instinct's relationship with insight is complicated. It can at times show when an insight is possible. A typical laboratory test of insight is the Remote Associates Test, or RAT. Given 3 words, like cottage, Swiss, and cake, can you find a 4th that links them? In this case, cheese. A variation on this task shows people either a coherent or a random word triad and makes them guess rapidly whether it is solvable before asking them for a solution. Even in cases when people cannot summon the solution, they're better than chance at judging the triad's coherence. Scientists use creative intuition to choose which courses to follow toward potential discoveries. This is the idea of sensing the right direction, Sadler-Smith says, like a radar that says, go down there, but not down there. Nobel laureates have discussed their use of hunches. Michael S. Brown, Medicine, 1985, has said, as we did our work, I think, we almost felt sometimes that there was practically a hand directing us. But we tend to have poor intuition or instinct about how close we are to an insight. In one study, individuals were given mathematics and reasoning issues, whose options needed either a main insight or mere grinding, and were asked to approximate their distance from the resolution every 15 seconds. Unlike for the non-insight issues, estimates for insight problems stayed fairly flat until the final aha. In a second research study, individuals' forecast of whether they'd be able to solve insight problems had no connection with the truth, in contrast to routine algebra issues. Topolinsky notes the olden attempt to perform a mathematical accomplishment called squaring the circle before it was proven impossible in 1882. There were many blind tracks that people followed for millennia, he says. Similarly, Einstein produced his theories of relativity, then for the rest of his life he's creating a possible theory of every little thing. Such a concept might be out there, but for his capabilities and his time, this was an incorrect instinct or intuition. 5. Tension favors intuition. Unhappiness does not. Deliberation is high-end. In dire circumstances, say, while being gone after by a bear, you do not have the time to weigh all your alternatives. You follow your first impulse. Run, probably. Anxiety stimulated in any circumstance similarly pushes you toward quick and penny-wise reflexes. If you're really in danger, that can be convenient. Otherwise, reflection could be better. One research study looked at the effects of tension on decision-making by connecting electrodes to participants' hands and randomly zapping them. Meanwhile, the poor souls had to complete analogies by flipping through answers one at a time. Butter is to margarine as sugar is to beets, saccharin, honey, lemon, candy, chocolate. Compared to participants who didn't get shocks, they were more likely to get on an answer without even seeing all of the alternatives, and as a result, got more wrong. Tension's impacts on the brain are mediated in part by the release of the hormone agent cortisol. In one experiment, scientists gave individuals a cortisol-increasing drug, or a placebo, then had them do something called the Cognitive Reflection Test, or CRT. The CRT includes 3 questions, each with an intuitive but wrong answer. This could be, a bat and a ball cost $1.10. The bat cost $1 more than the ball. How much does the ball cost? You want to say 10 cents. But a fast calculation reveals the ball is 5 cents and the bat is $1.05. Many people, even students at elite colleges, failed to get all 3 problems right. But cortisol lowered right answers even further. Even as tension triggers heuristic thinking, routines, and shortcuts, it deteriorates more sophisticated intuitive processing. Remember the remote associates test, cottage Swiss cake? One research study learned that increased anxiety in individuals by demonstrating them hair-raising images scrambled their instincts about whether a linking word existed. The macabre images may have affected this performance step, called an intuition index, in part by reducing individuals' mood. Sadness tends to make people think analytically. We're sad when something's wrong, which could be time for concentrated problem solving. 6. Some people are more instinctive than others. Some researchers actually believe there are individual differences in broad instinctive capability. A current research study found 2 clusters of intuitive skill. One is related to insight, such as developing a new metaphor, which is connected to intelligence. The other, related to implied learning, or learning complex info without knowing what you've learned, say picking up a new language, isn't highly linked to intelligence. Perhaps more consequential for conduct than general instinctive capability is the thinking style, the degree to which you rely on intuition or instinct and reflection in the first place. A common denominator in research is the faith in instinct, or FI scale, in which people rate contract with statements like, "I believe in trusting my hunches." FI and similar steps have been linked with several positive attributes. People with high FI get high instinct index scores, as long as they're in a positive state of mind, a state that brings intuition or instinct out to play. Another scale, with items like, "I usually make decisions that feel right to me," associated with better recognition of social norms as measured by how precisely people estimated their peers' approval of behaviors like stealing and fighting. And another correlated with greater creativeness on some tasks, such as drawing and thinking about uses for a cardboard box. But people who put faith in instinct or intuition also pay a rate. They perform worse on tasks requiring logic. They report having experienced more problems arising from poor decisions, varying from missing a flight to getting divorced. They report greater magic thinking, belief in astrology, ghosts, luck, God, and so on. And in one study, they were more likely to stereotype based on gender, but only in a positive state of mind. Topolinsky suggests that people may want to seek professions that match their thinking style. An accounting professional won't get as far relying on her gut as would, say, a therapist. And in any profession, if you know you put great faith in feelings, you may include extra reflection on jobs where breeze decisions can get you into trouble, like getting to the airport. 7. Morality intuitions are quickly swayed. Some of our deepest held beliefs involve morality, how we feel people should behave towards one another. And though they could appear as rock solid as fact, "Thou shalt not kill," they are just as directed by intuition or instinct as anything else. We can reason about lots of them, but only to a point. For many, especially on controversial or subtle issues like abortion, it boils down to intuition or instinct. It just feels wrong or right. Ethical institutions are inevitable and also valuable, says psychologist Matthew Feinberg of the Rotman School of Management in Toronto. They drive compassion and also social justice movements. But ethical instincts are also at the heart of many, many issues in society. Impassioned instinct can derail rational discussion, as opponents are identified as evil. Many discoveries highlight the unconscious processing built into moral judgment. Often, we base opinions on things we'd never ever factor into an intentional decision. In one research study, individuals' approval of sex between cousins depended on whether somebody had secretly deployed fart spray nearby. Visceral repulsion resulted in moral repulsion. In another study, individuals were asked whether it was okay to push a pretty large man off a footbridge to block a trolley from eliminating 5 others. If they just watched a clip from Saturday Night Live versus a documentary, their mood was more positive, and they were 4 times as likely to authorize. That doesn't sound like reflection. Thou shalt not kill, unless you've heard a great joke lately. Naturally, morality is based upon more than short-lived incidental cues. We also have much deeper values like fairness and loyalty, each an abstraction formed from a lifetime of experience. Psychologist Jonathan Haidt of New York City University has defined 5 distinct ethical foundations that direct our behavior: fairness, commitment, authority, purity, and avoiding harm. Studies suggest that political liberals prioritize fairness and harm avoidance. Conservatives favor loyalty, authority, and purity. And Feinberg has found out that we can form people's ethical intuitions by catering messages to their preferred values. When he framed an argument for universal health care concerning pureness, less diseased Americans, versus fairness, health care for all, conservatives uttered more support for Obamacare. When he laid out an argument for army spending in regard to fairness, fighting inequality, versus authority, American supremacy, liberals expressed more support. Also, he swayed conservatives to support same-sex marriage through commitment, patriotic couples, and environmentalism through purity, a tidy planet. He also used ethical reframing to lower conservative support for Donald Trump, he disloyally evaded the draft, and liberal support for Hillary Clinton, she unfairly favors Wall Street. Examples, metaphors, images, and stories can give shape to our own and other people's instincts, not only in politics, but in all realms of life, science, relationships, education. We acquire new models of the world, and thought, mindful and not, fills them in. When it comes to messages meant to elicit instinct, we see a lot of that on the internet these days, says the University of Saskatchewan's Thompson. Memes. That's precisely what they are. One could fairly call memes the fart spray of the web. 8. You can check out people by reading what they write online. Humans have strong intuitions about other individuals. This is just because character judgment has such dire effects, and because we have so much experience with it over our lifetimes and over evolution. What happens when people reading goes on the internet? And when it's limited to the reading of what others write? Progressively, we should evaluate one another by means of bits of text rather than, for example, darting eyes or kind smiles. But that does not keep back our breezed judgments. Typically, when asked to rate a writer's personality types based upon emails, personal essays, streams of consciousness, mock diary entries, mock blog posts, Twitter feeds, and dating ads, readers agree with each other more than chance would enable, indicating that there are hints in written reports that dependably trigger our intuitions. Which cues do we use? In dating profiles, studies show swear words suggest high neuroticism and low conscientiousness and agreeableness. Angry words suggest the exact same in tweets. In personal essays, exaggeration suggests extroversion and openness to experience. Past tense suggests depression in post, and cognitive words like no suggested in diaries. Certainly, deliberation plays a role in judgments, but I question anybody as counting past tense verbs. Our judgments about qualities from writing samples are also regularly more accurate than chance would allow, and some people are better than others at reading between the lines. One research study by Hall of Northeastern University found that the best judges were female, agreeable, diligent, mentally steady, thoughtful, interested in other people's lives, and big readers, especially of fiction. Judgments of personality can come from the thinnest of pieces, even just an email address. What's thinner than an email address? Punctuation. A study learned that angry and happy-seeming emails have many exclamation points and few enigma, and feminine-seeming emails have both. Other work found out that smileys in official emails do not make the author appear warm, but do make her or him appear unskilled. In the meantime, adding a smiley with a nose to a dating profile will win more replies, while adding a noseless smiley will get you less. RRB. To think, your future could depend on an emoji. Neither head nor heart can make it through by itself, and negotiating their symbiosis is a difficulty that is much harder than mastering chess or Go. It's not about whether instinct or analysis is best, Sadler Smith tells supervisors. The real skill in decision-making, problem-solving, creativity, whatever, is mixing those two things together. And in a way, that's sort of a lifetime project, isn't it? Chapter 6. A simple technique to help you read people better. James, not his real name, was a chain smoker, so he needed to go outside the structure to have the long discussion I was expecting. I had reached out to James, a knowledgeable interrogator, because I was an intelligence officer interested in finding out more about deceptiveness detection. As we walked around a grassy area on the south side of the East Coast Center, I asked James whether he thought it was possible to tell whether a prisoner was lying. He took a deep drag on his unfiltered camel while he considered my question. "Well," he said, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Sort of." My own breath looked a lot like cigarette smoke in the February early morning air as I asked, "Sort of?" More puffs off the camel, followed by a routine in which James dropped his half-smoked cigarette and ground it out under his heel while lighting another. While watching this, it struck me that I was questioning an interrogator who didn't really appreciate being interrogated, so atypically, I waited patiently for a response. "All of us, interrogators, have certain tells we keep an eye out for," James said, squinting at me through a cloud of smoke. "We look for, eye movements, way too much fidgeting, insufficient fidgeting, changes in intonation, inconsistencies in timelines, posture, yada yada. But I have come to doubt that stuff, at the very least when I am the one doing the questioning. What I like to do now is watch someone else put questions to a detainee. However, I don't watch the prisoner. I look at the officer asking the questions. How he responds to answers tells me more than how the detainee reacts to questions." I asked, "You mean the interrogator is a type of tuning fork that resonates with vibrations from a prisoner, and you search for vibrations of deception?" "More or less," he replied. "I cannot tell you exactly what it is that I am getting, but I've come to trust my understandings. The thing is, however, when I asked the officers whether they knew they were changing their behavior when they thought a man was lying, they took offense, because, they're not supposed to telegraph what they're thinking." James repeated his cigarette snuffing and lighting ritual. "The officers typically tell me that, when I saw them react to a detainee lying, they actually did think the guy was being incredibly elusive or misleading. They just didn't think their emotions revealed." With that, James tossed his camel and headed back to the warmth of the structure. The interrogation of the interrogator was over. Although James worked with lawbreakers, his tuning fork insight can help you do a better job of reading daily people by reading yourself. That's right. If you want to understand another person's nonverbal communication, start by zeroing in on your own nonverbal communication as you communicate with that person. Research on mirror neurons in the motor cortex of primates, along with electromyographic studies of subjects who are observing the conduct of others, suggests that minute contraction connected with unconscious mimicry consistently take place when we watch other individuals' conduct, including facial expressions, gestures, gait, and even control of things. It stands to reason, then, that we can get a better picture of another's emotions by paying closer attention to physical feelings in our own bodies. Concentrating on physical experiences can be a better way to know what we're truly feeling than straight inventorying our emotions, just because our social brains have evolved to reduce feelings about others, especially negative feelings. The bottom line is that your body can be a better tuning fork for finding out other tribes' feelings than your mind. The next time it is really essential to read another person, on a date, on a job interview, a deal, or a meeting with your boss, practice sensate awareness, also called mindfulness, to better concentrate on your body. The method is basic. Take several deep breaths, hold them for 30 seconds, then breathe out. Beginning with your feet, run a fictional scanner up your body, noticing the experiences in your feet, calves, thighs, abdominal area, arms, chest, throat, neck muscles, and face. These are what I call baseline feelings. Repeat the exercise several times until you think you can remember your baseline. This exercise is useful on many levels, one of which is to expose persistent tension in certain parts of your body. Now you are prepared to be a tuning fork. In circumstances where reading the other individual is very important, take a number of deep breaths and occasionally repeat the fictional scan of your body, searching for departures from your baseline. That takes some practice because we generally concentrate on others when we engage with them, but you'll marvel how quickly you can master it. I can tell you from personal experience that the strategy actually works. As a therapist dealing with violent men at a community psychological university hospital, I found scanning to be a reliable tool for picking up deeply buried hostilities that I otherwise would have missed, most likely because I didn't want my clients to be feeling hostile. And that's the crucial takeaway for reading others. Our bodies can tell us what's actually going on, not what we want to be going on. This has been How to Analyze People: The Truth About Mind Reading and Intuition. Written by Aries Helen. Narrated by Dean Collins.